This morning, we're hearing for the first time from a juror what really happened behind closed doors for 4 days. How did the jury ultimately decide to convict Paul Manafort on 8 of 18 charges? At the same time, Michael Cohen may have pleaded guilty to 8 counts, but now he's been served with a subpoena as part of a New York State criminal probe into the Trump Organization. Let me bring in Tom Winter, an NBC investigative reporter. Robert Bianchi is a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. Tom, connect the dots. What is this subpoena for? What does it mean?
Okay, so first thing, we've been focused a lot on the counts as it relates, understandably, to Michael Cohen and the president. But the first 5 counts that he pled guilty to have to do with tax evasion. And so federal prosecutors have said that he didn't declare over $4 million of income on successive tax returns from 2012 to 2016. So if you're the New York State Division of Taxation, and they're the ones that issued this subpoena, you would look at this and say, wait a minute, if he didn't declare to the feds $4 million of income, maybe he didn't declare to us $4 million of income, we're entitled to our pound of flesh here. And so for Michael Cohen, he would have to pay both New York State tax as well as New York City tax.
So are the implications only for him, or are they for the Trump family as well?
So we can get beyond that. So in the Trump Organization, depending upon how they accounted for certain of the payments that were given to Michael Cohen. So remember, in count 8, that's the Stormy Daniels count, Michael Cohen pled that he received payment from the Trump Organization for what he was able, for the payment he made to Stormy Daniels. They were also, and it's in the criminal information, there was text information and there were communications that occurred saying, hey, we're going to pay you above and beyond that $130,000, because if we were to pay you that as a paycheck, you'd have to take taxes out of it. So is there any sort of issue here with respect to the with respect to the Trump Organization, as far as did they properly account for, and was this all proper, the way that they accounted for the payment back to Michael Cohen for the payment to Stormy Daniels? So
again, very much like, though, the case that was laid out in court against Paul Manafort, there's a lot of paperwork there. But bringing it down to, I think, a more understandable level in some ways, something extraordinary happened here, I think, Bob, in that Cohen gets a subpoena. 99.9% of the time, you tell me if I'm wrong about this, your lawyer then is in touch, right, with the New York State authorities who have issued this subpoena. He picks up the phone. That's the reporting, that he picks up the phone. What's going on here? Okay,
listen, people are misunderstanding what's going on because they hear that there's not a quote-unquote cooperation agreement. The data is already there. They have him locked up. He's got multiple federal and state jurisdictions.
Not physically locked up, but locked up.
No, he's locked up in terms of his investigation.
Yep.
He is splayed onto the mercy of both federal and state prosecutors in multiple jurisdictions. I've not only done this as a prosecutor, but I'm telling you as a defense attorney. Even though there's not a cooperation agreement, there's kind of a wink and a nod or an understanding that says if you fully cooperate, if you do what we ask, if you go and give all the data and information, even though as a defense lawyer you don't want to do that because that opens him up to more criminal liability, that's not where Michael Cohen is right now. His wife didn't get charged, and he is going on team and state USA and state attorney generals. He'll go to the Hill. He'll give every data that he can in the hopes that those jurisdictions will not go after him. Remember, in that cooperation,
well, let me stop you there, because that plea deal was something that really got the president going in his interview on Fox and Friends. So let's listen to that.
It's this whole thing about flipping, they call it. I know all about flipping. For 30, 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail, and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. It almost ought to be outlawed.
It almost ought to be outlawed. So, in other words, he's saying people should not cooperate with legitimate investigations. Is that what you heard there?
I did hear that, but I will say this. I'm going to give a little credence to the comment in one way. There is a body of people that are out there that have said that this idea of flipping, and where a person who is more culpable, more responsible, gets less of a sentence than somebody who may be a bigger fish or a bigger target, winds up going down for it. Look, it's a prosecutorial tool that needs to be done. It shouldn't be eliminated. And certainly, this is not the wrong case in order to argue that, because they're getting plenty of data that shows there's a lot of activity, and they're moving up the chain of command.
And we heard from one of Paul Manafort's jurors last night. Fascinating interview, but let me play just a little bit of it.
How close, I want to know, did this jury come to convicting Paul Manafort on all 18 counts? By one. There was one holdout.
What was their reasoning, if they shared with you?
Reasonable doubt. The person, a female juror, was, we all tried to convince her to look at the paper trail. We laid it out in front of her again and again, and she still said that she had a reasonable doubt. And that's the way the jury worked.
We got a very quick reaction from each of you, but that woman is a Trump supporter, but she said that the evidence, the rest of them all saw it as completely overwhelming. Does that discount the argument that's been made that they're afraid there'll just be one Trump supporter and that could ruin some of these cases?
I completely agree with you. I think it completely discounts it. And as I always say, you know, have faith in the jury. They're a jury of your peers, and having covered an incredible amount of trials, an incredible amount of time in a courtroom, I've always seen where the jury typically gets it right.
I'm trying cases as a prosecutor and defense lawyer. I agree with that proposition. And you know what? It would be nice to know that our politicians and elected officials would have the same integrity that the jurors do.
Well said. Thank you both.